Yeah, most of the development of Star-Lord happens in those first two movies. And Endgame, or not Endgame, Infinity War, there is development, but like it's just kind of solidifying what was already established in those first two movies.
Yeah, absolutely. So, hi everyone, welcome back to Joe the Super Show. Well, not back because it's the first fucking episode. I'm with Matt Loftus again. I brought him back because not only is he consistent in his routine and working out and Iron Skillet cooking and just being communicative on social media, he's also a savant within the MCU, and he's especially a big fan of Guardians of the Galaxy. So what we're going to do today is we're going to give you a layout of the story arc of Peter Quill, Star-Lord, how it pertains to his mental health. And the only thing I have to say before we start here is this is for entertainment purposes only. Please, 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 please do not look to either of us for solid mental health advice. We're climbing the same hill as you. So take most of the things we say with a grain of salt. We can only speak on the experiences that we've had. So most likely a lot of our opinions on this will be wrong, but guess what? That's where you come in. Check us. Fucking check us. Matt, how are you,
Oh
dude?
yeah, I'm great. I'm actually really excited to be here and talking about this because, as you said, Guardians of the Galaxy is one of my favorite. But I'm a big fan of the MCU, as I'm sure a lot of people are. But like, I could talk about I talk about this stuff not regularly, but like as a
I know.
normal conversation, this is just something that I could get into for a couple hours. I would say like, and in most details, I'm really excited to
Well, I
talk about
realized
that.
that because at the end of our podcast, and with most podcasts, I'll talk to everyone before we start recording. But then a lot of the times I end up talking to people for a long time after the recording. And me and you got into Marvel because not only do I have kids, but I'm a fan myself.
Yes.
Especially of Star Lord and Peter Quill because he does go through a fucking lot. But I was like,
Hmm.
yo, I've been wanting to talk about MCU related events, even though it's been years since the events of Infinity War and Endgame. But
Yeah.
there's still more story to tell, and there's still
Hmm.
more story for Star Lord to go through. I
Yeah.
figured who better to speak on this than Matt fucking Loftus, because on top of being an MCU fan, you're pretty big on keeping up on where you are mentally.
Yeah. Well, so I am for sure. Like my daily practices are always trying to improve like myself, how I feel. You know what I mean? Because really what it comes down to is how you feel throughout the day is how you're gonna produce like how your productivity and how you're gonna produce things, that whole outcome. So if you're feeling like garbage, what you're producing, you know what I mean, whether it's work at work, whether you're working out, whether it's posting videos or social media, the end result might is probably not going to be the best quality because you don't feel in it. You know what I mean? So for me, making sure I'm where I should be has been a priority. And yes, I got ups and downs, but like, and cinema, specifically the MCU, because there's so many in-depth characters thanks to all these amazing directors. The MCU has like a plethora of characters to sort of bounce things that you're experiencing off of. Like, how would this because everybody looks up to superheroes. Everybody has somebody that they look up to. You watch a
Oh
movie, and
yeah.
you're like, that dude is that dude. So I think it's important to sort of draw inspiration from sources outside of yourself and outside of your normal sources. It's okay to go into superhero movies and say, I want to be like that character. So,
Oh, dude, absolutely. Like, and we relate a lot to these people because there's so many of them, and they all come from very specific places that we all have a superhero or supervillain in mind that we immediately relate to because of a
mm-hmm.
story that they've been involved in. But specifically with Peter Quill, Star Lord, um, dude, let's just get right into it because this guy, when we first see him, and guys, I'm only gonna jump through exactly what happens to Star Lord. There's other things that happen to the other characters that pertain to Star Lord that we're going to touch on, but for the sake of time, you've already seen the movies. So we're just going to go through what's going on with Star Lord as it
Yeah.
pertains to him and his mental health and where he goes. But when you first see him in the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie, he's listening to music, but he's in the hospital. He's waiting
Mm-hmm.
for, not waiting for, he's avoiding going into his mother's hospital room. She's dying of cancer. And this unnamed gentleman, I don't know if it's his grandfather or his uncle, comes out, brings him in, and it's really sad because like his mom's obviously like on her way out, and he doesn't want to say goodbye. That is the whole theme of the intro, is that he doesn't want to say goodbye. He would literally do anything to say goodbye. He doesn't want to be in the room. So she goes to give him this gift, and he doesn't want to take it, so it's put in his backpack for him. But then she reaches out and says, "Take my hand," because she knows that she's leaving. He knows that she's leaving. But again, Peter doesn't want to say goodbye, so he runs away. Like she flatlines while he's like not taking her hand, and he runs away from that.
And I think right there is sort of like is when obviously that's when this all starts, but from what we can tell, like, because obviously the guy who's pulling him in the room is not his dad. You get that feeling right away. Right. So this established that Peter is without a father at this point. So there's no one who's experiencing the grief like like his family members are experiencing it, but like that's his mother. And if his father was there, it'd be like, this is my wife. So me and him, like, we are sort of going through this together. Well, that's not there. And he's also a very young kid. So it's like,
the maturity's not there either to be like, you know what, my pain is unique, but, the other people are going through pain. Like, he just wanted to run, like most kids want to do. Like, they don't want to face things like that. So he ran.
No. Yes.
But that's absolutely part of it, is like, there wasn't anybody as close as a father figure would be that he could lean to and be like, yo, this scares the fuck out of me. I'm going to lose my mom. But he runs, and as soon as he leaves the hospital, here comes Yondu's ship and takes him, which is ironic, too, because he literally, like, I can imagine in his head, I don't even want to be on this planet.
Right.
If my mom's not going to be here, I don't want to be here. And we'll touch on that later. But it's weird that he got taken by Yondu, which is what he kind of wanted in a weird way. But that's where, all right, roll intro credits. We're into Guardians of the Galaxy. But after all the singing and everything, where he goes to get the stone, and they confront him and try to take the stone from him. Remember they lock him up, and they're like, "What's your name?" "Peter Quill, but you might know me by another name, Star-Lord." And they're like, "Who?" But that's so sad because he has no origin. He has no remembers who he was, so he tries to make this name for himself. By the way, his mom named him Star-Lord.
Yes.
So when no one knows him by Star-Lord, it's just a reminder that, like, damn, I miss my mom.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And I just thought of this. Star-Lord might also be a callback to who his father was, because you find out that his father is a spaceman. So.
Well, yeah, true. I mean, I doubt that his mom didn't hear the ramblings of his father and think that he's going to rule the skies with his father one day. He's a Star-Lord. Yep. But I mean, there's no confirmation of that. That's speculation. That's just us,
we're riffing.
Yeah. No, absolutely. But yeah, and I remember he gets on the ship afterwards when he like actually gets the stone, and the girl is on the ship, and he's like, honestly, I forgot that you were here. That shows me two things.
Yeah.
All right. He's not into attachment, at least at this point.
Yeah.
Because the only people he really has are Yondu, who sucks anyway right now, and his mom, who left. And it also shows that he's very honest. He could have just lied to her, but he didn't even care enough to like try to lie. Not that caring means you should lie, but he was just like, I didn't even know you were here. So that's just who he is as a person. He's just straight up.
Yeah, right. Like he's kind of fully self-aware, but he's just like, listen,
still a swindler, like still a swindler and a thief. But like when down to it, when like it's just you and him, he's like, all right, fine. Like here's how it is.
The only person I have to give me an example of how to be is Yondu, and I don't really want to be like that guy. So listen, I kind of just forgot you were there,
Well, on the ship when he leaves and Yondu finds out that he's not going to bring him the stone, Yondu gets pissed and said he's going to kill him. But then, really behind closed doors, Yondu's like, okay, well, I need him here, and there's a bounty on his head, but bring him back alive. Yeah. So that shows that Yondu, like, as harsh as he is, he cares enough to where he doesn't want him dead, but like he doesn't care enough to like not want him to be like happy. Also, side note, real quick, Peter Quill said in his ship, because someone called it. Oh, Gamora called his ship filthy. Fast forward to when they're leaving Xandar. They're on the ship and she calls it filthy. He says, if I had a black light, this ship would look like a Jackson Pollock painting, which I think implicates that he's a sex addict. So he's been using coping mechanisms for 26 years, assumedly. I assume that casual sex is just something he does that human interaction or person interaction, but he also has to get attached.
Yeah. And for those watching, Joe said Xandar. What he really means is the kiln, the prison, when they get on there, and he says that the ship is filthy because that's where they leave from. They get arrested on Xandar, they go to the kiln, and then when they leave the kiln, Gamora says, your ship is filthy. Again, to allude, he's got attachment issues, he's trying to drown out his negative feelings towards women, and he doesn't really, he probably doesn't appreciate women in the best way because he doesn't have the best examples to show him how to be a respectable person.
Oh, he absolutely doesn't, because you can even see on Xandar before he even meets Gamora or meets the gentleman where he tries to sell the stone to until he finds out Ronan's involved, that every time he's in front of a man, it's either in confrontation or in business. But every time he's in front of a woman, it's in physical contact and in a romantic or physical sense.
Yeah, trying to woo them.
Yeah, not to say he's a bad guy, but he definitely, I don't like his tactics on how he, but I digress. He's not healthy right now.
No.
But I don't blame him. He got ripped off of Earth the second his mom died. He's been raised by Yondu. But I fast forward again, because not much happens in his development besides that he meets the Guardians and there's some camaraderie or whatever. But I want to fast forward to when I think he falls for Gamora. Go ahead.
Well, so when they're in the kiln, right, and Drax is about to kill Gamora, we get a little hint of who he can be. Because, again, in the hospital scene, he's got a black eye, and his mom wants to know, why have you been fighting with the other boys? And he says they smushed a frog that ain't done nothing. So we get a taste like he is a good person. And then you fast forward to the kiln. He's reasoning with Drax not to kill Gamora, and he doesn't know these people at all. But I guess he sees something in them. You know what I mean? So he reasons with them. He's like, you should not kill them. You should not do Ronan's dirty work. You should take care of Ronan yourself. And reasons with Drax the Destroyer, who up until this point was seen as someone that you cannot reason with. And this is Drax the Destroyer in one of the baddest prisons probably in the whole galaxy. You don't, and here comes Star-Lord. No one knows who this guy is. He's like, listen, you should not. So right there, you get a sense that, this guy has potential to be much more than he can rally people who have no idea who he is or what he's about to come together for a common goal. So,
right, especially in terms of in his eyes, she didn't do anything that he didn't already try to do, which was steal the stone and swindle and betray people. So in his eyes, she's innocent and he doesn't want her to die. He understands that other people have a reason to kill her, but he was also right in telling Drax, hey, the real person you want is Ronan. And if you kill her, there's no one for Ronan to come capture.
Yeah.
So you need to keep her alive. So he dug deep for an explanation on why she should stay alive. But moral of the story is they stayed alive. They escaped the kiln, right? So they get to where they get it to nowhere after that.
The celestial head.
They get to the giant head of a ancient celestial being. So they get there, and him and Gamora have alone times where they're just talking about what's happened so far. But she asked about the Walkman, and he explains that, my mom gave it to me, and it has music, and about dancing, and, so I have here that she betrayed Ronan because she couldn't stand to see a planet destroyed full of innocent people the way that her planet was destroyed and her family was destroyed, and they were innocent people.
Yeah.
So that shows that she's a good person too, but she also sees that all right, I come from a place of I'm not the greatest person ever, but I'm trying. And I kind of see that in Peter as well. And I kind of think Peter falls for her in that, like, wait, she's like me in that she's led a certain life up till now, but she understands that certain things are wrong, and it's never too late to stand up for what you actually believe for.
Yeah, she has like this guard up and this armor on, because if she, if she sort of strips it down in the wrong area, she'll be taken out or looked at as like as soft. So she's got to have this rough exterior. As we know, you know what I mean? You don't know this going into the MCU, but it's established in the comics that she is the daughter of Thanos. They do say that in the opening of the movie, but like, this is the daughter of Thanos. And they give a little backstory on Thanos, but like, Thanos, you find out, is not somebody that is a nice person, because you find out in the movie that he wiped out half the planet. So Gamora had to be this sort of tough, I can't be this innocent little girl anymore with this Titan who has now killed my entire planet, half my planet, half my whole family, and now I'm with him. So I need to toughen up. And you're right, Star-Lord, I think he does see that in her, because he's kind of the same way. He can't be soft, can't be this innocent little kid. He's hanging out with Yondu and the Ravagers now. And Yondu is constantly making threats, and he brings it up. He even brings it up in the opening scenes where he's like, they wanted to eat you. They never had Terran before. This kid, when you meet him, is like 9 or 10 years old. You know what I mean? He's not that old, and he's already being he's already having threats that be.
So he has to be tough the whole time. He doesn't have the privilege to choose to do the right thing often, because by trade, what they do is the wrong thing. And for the sake of moving forward, in terms of the way Peter Quill gets through this, is that he doesn't have that many interactions with people that stay in his life past the night besides Yondu and all them. So for him to see these people for a couple days in a row and understand that, we do bad things, but we're not bad people. We're all reaching, the same point together in that we want to do better. But, even Rocket explains his pain to Quill, how he never had any family and he was an experiment, and his creators got rid of him and didn't care. It's the first time that Peter saw humanity through people other than himself.
Yes. Oh, yes.
So that's a big jump for him, because it's literally, he's got raised by Yondu and all these savages, and for the first time it's like, wait, I know my humanity because I remember my time on Earth, but there's humanity in other people, and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Because you also with Drax too, like they also, like Groot is with Rocket, but like they all have this very similar motivation, which I think why the movie works so well. Because even Drax has like this rough exterior he's got to put up, because Drax was a family man. Drax had a wife and he had a daughter. Like, he wasn't like a father of a son, because as I'm sure you know, as a father of a son, you may act a little differently towards your son than you do towards your daughter. Drax
was definitely a gentle individual when it came to his family.
Yes, you know what I mean? And now he's known as Drax the Destroyer. So, like...
Loss changes you, man.
Yes. And so, I think Peter... I'm not remembering the movie fully right now, but I think Peter knows that Drax, because I think everybody knows about Drax at this point, knows that Drax wants to go after Ronan, which is why he's able to appeal to Drax when he's trying to kill Gamora. It's like, listen, you want Ronan, wait, or you want her, but you really want Ronan. So wait until Ronan comes to get her, and then you can get Ronan. You know what I mean? So they're all sort of this mutual... seeking some sort of redemption for their loss, for what they don't have.
That's the theme of the Guardians of the Galaxy, is that they found each other, created their own family, and it's built out of kind of like trauma bonding, but they all have a similar aspect to themselves, and that's a huge loss. They can all relate to that, and what it takes to actually pull yourself back up and open yourself to family again after losing the only family you know. Yeah. And Peter, he understands that, like, risk is a big thing. Like, you definitely put yourself on the line for those you care about, because after they get attacked and Gamora's floating out in space, he actually gives her his face mask. That gives her air so she's not dying. But that's after the fight where Nebula comes and attacks on Nowhere.
Oh, yeah, that's right. And they steal the construction pods, and they're bouncing around, and the what are they called? Nectocrafts? I don't know. The things that look like they're made out of rock.
But listen to this. Listen to this. So that's the first time in my mind I think that he really went out of his way for someone's life other than his own. Yeah. But here's what he says when Gamora asks why he did that. He said, "I saw you out there, and I don't know what came over me, but I couldn't let you die. I found something inside of myself, something incredibly heroic, not to brag." But still, there's some truth into that joke, in that he couldn't stand the thought of her being like, no, something in me pushed me out there. I had to get you. Yeah. And that's a lot for him.
It is.
And I think it's because, like, for the first time in his life, wow, not everyone is a fucking scumbag, and every people have that good inside of them that I've always felt.
Yeah.
And fuck, maybe that should be the dominant side of me, and he's just getting a taste of that right now.
Yeah, and I think that's why he throws that joke in, because this is something that these are emotions that he hasn't experienced before. So
he's still a womanizer, kind of. So he had to get in because it's
absolutely. You know what I mean? Because he's not sure about if he should let his guard down around these people. He's like, I couldn't let you die, but I didn't do it for you. I did it because it felt like it was going to be awesome if I did.
Right. So at this time, they get picked up and boarded by Yondu.
Yes.
Okay, and Yondu has Peter against the wall. Like, he captures them all, but he's like looking at Peter, has him against the wall, and telling him, "Boy, you're soft." Like, just like belittling him. And you can see in like his eyes, Peter's eyes, that he still cares about what Yondu has to say about him. Yeah. Even after this newfound feeling of like, no, the wanting to do good part of me can, prevail over the I have to be a certain way type deal. But he still really cares about what his only real father figure has ever had to say, calling him soft after he just saved someone's life, and he believes him.
Because it's kind of like Yondu's trying to teach him. You know what I mean? Yondu's teaching him the only way Yondu really knows how. Because he's saying something, and he's like, "Because you're soft." And here, sorry about that audio spike, but like Yondu is trying to teach Peter how to be strong. You know what I mean? How to
in the only way he knows, because his parents sold him off to slavery. So in Yondu's mind, anything less than that is a damn good parenting. And the fact that Peter's still alive in Yondu's mind means that he did everything he could.
Yes.
They get back to that at the end of Guardians 2. Those are his literal words.
Yes.
But I digress. But yeah, he's still a little cocky. But he really gives a shit about what Yondu has to say. And he even gives up Gamora to Yondu, telling Yondu that, hey, Gamora knows all of Ronan's plans.
Right.
Knows all of. So if you keep, like, you can have her and get the information out of her, and in exchange, like, we're good.
Yeah.
Of course, like, Yondu being, like, wanting to, like, keep Peter alive is publicly like, all right, word, fair trade. Yeah. Everyone else wants Peter dead, by the way. Yondu is the only reason.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he is. Because Yondu looks at him like a son, and he starts to sort of lose the grip or lose the camaraderie with his crew, because he's really favoring his adopted son, we'll say. So,
but it's only happening because he feels like he's losing grip on Peter, because now Peter is denying, his orders and everything, and it's more like a father-son thing than it is a captain and lackey type thing.
Yeah.
But you see in after Yondu accepts the offer, that what they have to do is they have to come up with a plan, and they have to present this plan to Yondu, and they will act together to defeat Rome. But he gets in there and he's like, yo, I don't have a plan. But you know what? When I look at all you guys, I see losers. And I don't mean losers. I mean people who've lost a lot. But they're all capable people. And he believes and rallies them together that together they defeat Ronan. And they even say, so you're asking us to die. And he's like, you know what? I guess I am.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, coming from Peter Quill, that's what he's willing to do to make sure that our common interest of billions of innocent people not dying, they rallied together over Peter Quill, and they acted. They came up with a plan, and they did great. What do I have here as a quote?
And it's
hold on. They have he says word for word. He says, so we can give a shit for once, not run away. So they can not kill innocent people. But Gamora says she's grateful to die among friends. Drax says, "You're an honorable man, and I will fight beside you." Like they're just telling him, like, "No, dude, you're." Well, Groot says, "I am Groot," but
you know what he means. We all know what Groot means.
They're all just saying, like, Peter, no, we see in you what you see in you, and we believe in that, and we trust in that, and we're gonna act on your leadership. Let's fucking do this, because at the end of the day, if they're gonna die anyway, they're gonna die trying.
Yes, and I would like to say that this all happened because of that one person that he met, and I would, some people are still looking for that person, but I can absolutely attest that when you meet that one person, it can literally change how you look at yourself and turn you into that better person. And I'm not here to talk about relationships or anything like that. But, it could be a friend, it could be a girlfriend, a husband, a wife, a mentor. But that one person that you meet wherever you're at in your life can literally redirect your entire course that you're headed on. As soon as he meets Gamora, things start to change for him. You know what I mean? He ends up in prison. He starts talking to these people. Next thing you know, they're escaping prison together, so they have to work together. Then they get to nowhere, and like he's got to sort of explain everything, and it's just sort of, and even the other team members start explaining this. Like Rocket's yelling at Drax for calling Ronan into nowhere. You know what I mean? He's like, everyone's got dead people. No reason to get yourself dead along the way. And then like it's just
because Rocket cares. Rocket's on the other side of it, where he's like, I'd rather us all just live and cling to each other and just be a family. But he's also down for the bullshit.
And so like you sort of when you start to change, the people around you sense that, and then they want to change as well, which is why they sort of build together, because Peter's changing.
Which is why it builds his confidence. It absolutely builds his confidence, because, again, they see in him what he sees in him. Yeah. And having that kind of support after acting on that positive emotion and feeling, that makes you want to keep doing it. And this is like him saying for the first time, all right, this is who I am. I have to deal with Yondu for now, but like, no, we're acting on what we feel is right. This is who we are as a family.
Yes. And then they do the same thing. They act on those feelings that they see in him that they now see in themselves. And it just, the theme of Guardians of the Galaxy is, we'll say, it's family. Because when you see how your family members are like, whether adopted family members or blood family members, when you see people acting in a good way, you want to do it for yourself. And it's just sort of a ripple effect that goes throughout the entire family, we'll say. I keep saying family, but like that's the theme. It is the theme, is family.
Dude, what's nice is during the montage and everything of them getting ready to fight Ronan, you get Yondu says to Peter, "If you cross me, I'll kill you," which he's not actually going to do, because everything he set up to this point was keep Peter alive. Yeah. But he's just relaying, like, I'm still being harsh. Like, this is a very serious thing. I don't want you to die, so you have to fucking complete this. But immediately after that, he's preparing, and one of Yondu's guys, who was actually in Captain Marvel as well, calls him Star-Lord. And Peter's like, dude, this is like all coming together for me. I do positive things. Positive things are happening to me right now. Like, he's facing loss again. He's marching his new family into the face of death the way that he knows he can't handle, because his mom died and he didn't handle it well. Yeah. But it's what he feels is right. So he's facing it the correct way this time.
And he's not alone, right?
Oh, no, he's not alone at all.
He's not alone at all. He's built these relationships. When he was watching his mother die, as we said earlier, there was no one with him to experience the same kind of grief that he was going through. Nobody, like, the relationship that he had with his mother was very unique in that sense. Like, his mother's brothers and sisters and all of them have a different relation. Like, my uncle has a different relationship with my father than I have with my father. Same thing. Yeah. Like, and so now that he's going into this uncertain situation with other people, he's that much more sure of himself. He's not worried about this unknowable outcome. Like, he doesn't know what's going to happen at the end of this battle on Xandar, but he doesn't care.
No, he doesn't.
He's just happy that he has this support group, this people who have the same feelings, have the same like sort of drive and things to make it happen.
Yeah, but all right, so exactly on Earth, he did have that support of that family that was there for his mother, but he chose to deal with it alone and run from his problems.
Yes.
Now he's gathering his family, he's facing the problem head on, and he understands that there's an uncertain future, but he wants to go through it with these people, and he understands that a death fighting for what you think is right with the people you love is better than, you know, dying doing something you know is wrong, or living doing something you know is wrong.
Yes.
But Peter really does go from running from his problems to facing them head on, and that's a big step for him. So they fight Ronan. No character development happens during the fight. We're just going to skip it.
Not really, no. Although Drax, I mean, I know we're talking about Star-Lord, but I guess we're kind of I keep talking about the whole team because, again, the development of the whole team is really helping the development of Star-Lord, who we're trying to focus on. And even Drax, during the fight, when they enter Ronan's ship, becomes very appreciative of the people that he surrounds himself with.
Oh, yeah. He starts giving them all compliments. Yeah.
Yes.
But, like, they all were experiencing the same, you know, epiphany that, like, no, you know what? We've lost family, but we found a new one.
Yeah.
And it's okay to be appreciative of that and to accept that.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all going through that. So what they do is when they face Ronan on the ground, because Ronan has to get the stone on the surface of Xandar, and that's how he'll destroy it. So Peter hits with the dance off to, like, stall. All right? So they blow up Ronan's axe, and Peter's the first to grab the stone.
Yeah.
No one else budges. They just know get the stone away from Ronan.
Yeah.
So they blow the axe up, the stone comes down, but Peter's the first one there, catch it midair.
And that in itself is a major piece of development because they have seen people, they've seen that one being who was this crazy celestial can wield it by himself. Then they see another group who held the stone, which is like 6 people, but they instantly died. So Peter he's got no idea who his father is. He's got no idea about his origins.
In his mind, he's going to die.
Exactly. This is the sacrifice play right here. This is like full court press.
It's like a mini Tony Stark moment at the end of Endgame. It's like a mini version of that.
Yes. And he grabs it, having no idea what's going to happen, and grabs it. And, you know, obviously we know that he survives. But in that moment, Peter's like, this is it. This is everything I got. You know what I mean? And here we go.
Absolutely. But so he's the first to grab the stone, then Gamora takes his hand. But when she goes to take his hand, he has the flashback to his mother saying, "Take my hand."
Yes.
This time he doesn't run from it. He takes her fucking hand.
Yes.
Again, in his mind, they're all about to die, but he doesn't give a fuck. I love her. That is my family. She's in this for me. I'm in this for her. Let's do this. And again, this is huge for him because dude was a fucking, for the most part, the way I'm a scumbag, Peter was a fucking scumbag. And then meeting the right people and understanding who they are and who you are, it can do a lot for you. So he grabs the stone. They all gather and grab each other's hands. They control the power of the stone. Mm-hmm. And they're facing Ronan. And Ronan says, "Mere mortal, how?" You know, it's weird enough that, like, in that moment, you don't know who Peter's father is, but Peter should be the weakest in that group.
Yeah, right, because Gamora has cybernetic enhancements. Drax, I don't know the being that Drax is, but I know that
he's physically stronger. I think it would take like maybe a millisecond longer to fucking blow him up, but like Peter being a human is water and flesh and is weaker physically.
Yes. Even Rocket has his cybernetic enhancements, and like Groot is basically
thrown across fucking planets into ships and shit, and ends up okay for the most part. He gets like knocked up, but he has cybernetic enhancements too.
Yeah.
But that whole group, you know, Peter's the weakest. I think that's just like a little, you know, ironic, but
Oh, for sure. And
Again, it just shows that he's underestimated, which he's
yes,
been this whole time, not knowing that he is the leader who he is and the motivator
yes.
that he is. He's once again, and for the last time, underestimated.
Oh yeah.
But after the fight with, I'm sorry, you had something to say?
I was just gonna say that it's family. Family's the big theme of what helps you believe in yourself. You know, because I'm sure there's a small part of him that knows full well that he is looked at as the least likely one to successfully handle this stone, and yet he's the one doing it. You know, but he's not afraid to do it because of the people that have his back.
All right, so it's a superhero movie. You know that the good guys win.
Yes, obviously.
So Star-Lord has this new confidence about him, but still, Yondu approaches him at the end of everything and expects Peter to give him the orb. Peter gives him the fake orb.
Yeah, and orb.
Yeah, and then Yondu leaves, leaving Peter with his new family. And Peter says to Gamora, he was the only family I had. And Gamora says to him, no, he wasn't. So it's like, don't be sad that the only person that you've had in your life is gone, because guess what? We're a family and we got you. Yep. Which I think is great, and it's great that he can believe them. You know, that you also find out at the end of the movie that he gets told that his father is something ancient because they test his DNA, and he's kind of curious about that, but there's no character development, but it sets the tone. Also, at the end when he's saying goodbye to the Nova Corps, the character played by John C. Reilly says he says to him and says, "I'm going to keep an eye out for him." John C. Reilly says, "You?" And he says, "Yeah, me." Like he's real fucking confident about it. Mm-hmm. But he gets on the ship and he's so confident, and he feels like he can face his problems now. He finally opens his gift from his mother.
Yeah.
And he finds out that it's the Awesome Volume 2, and it's a bunch of great fucking music, and he just looks really confident about the future. Is the notes that I had at the end of that fucking movie in terms of Star-Lord, is that he was really looking forward to it. And icing on the cake, all right, so we think of Yondu as some fucking badass dude who doesn't give a fuck. Well, on his way away from the Nova Corps, Yondu realizes that Peter gave him a fake orb, but he doesn't get mad. He smiles because he's proud of his son.
Yes, he's proud that he, like, you know what I mean? He's developing past what his father is, which is, I think, the aspirations for most fathers, for their children to be better than who they are. And Yondu has seen the power of this stone. You know what I mean? So, like, for Peter not to give it to Yondu, despite what Peter thinks Yondu will do, is something that Yondu, like, makes him very proud inside.
Right, like, A, he did the right thing, which is true to himself, which is like, all right, cool. B, he swindled him, which is like, all right, no honor amongst thieves. Like, that was, you got me. But, like, he also, it's like, all right, Peter gets to live.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's
doing the right thing because Yondu didn't want that stone. Yondu wanted nothing to do with that stone, but he had to assert himself as, you know, the dominant person. Now that Ronan was gone, Yondu stepped like, all right, motherfucker, give me the stone, I'm out.
Yes. Oh, yes.
But so where we leave off with that is Peter feels like he's on a really good path at overcoming the sadness about his mother's dying. He's ready to face a lot of those feelings. He's confident in people again. In family and in trust. He still has his hang-ups, but who doesn't? But after the first movie, I feel like Peter's on a really good trajectory, and he has a really good core of people around him. There's not one bad around, like Rocket's an asshole, but they're really good people. So I feel like Star-Lord going forward, I feel good for where he's going. I think he feels good for where he's going, because at the end of the movie, they have no real path besides what do we do next?
Exactly. Because he literally says that. It's like, what do you want to do next?
But you know like in real life, though, that question, when you ask yourself, that's a privilege. I on a day-to-day basis have the privilege to ask.
Yeah.
No, not everyone has that privilege, and now Star-Lord is like, wow, it feels really good to have the mental privilege to think about things other than trauma. Like, what if I want to spend time with my
Yeah, right?
But so, Matt, that was the end of the first movie. You know, me and you are going to keep going about Guardians of the Galaxy 2 after a short break. All right, so Matt, let's hit Guardians of the Galaxy 2 because we started off with we finished Guardians of the Galaxy 1 with Peter super confident, and the only really question in his life is who his father is, so you know they're going to address it.
Yes.
The Guardians
They
are.
even they even mention like in some of the pre-production that James Gunn set that up intentionally for the next film to come. You know what I mean? He set this father dynamic because it was going to play a bigger role in the volume 2.
Oh, and boy, did it, because the entire theme of Guardians of the Galaxy 2, outside of the main characters of Guardians of the Galaxy, are the long-term effects of not dealing with, how you really feel. Because Yondu negatively dealt with the way his parents treated him, projected that onto Peter, and caused a chain reaction of now people are living bad life. And the same thing with Ego. Ego is evil as fuck in his ways, but he's dealing with finding a sense of purpose, and he finds it in the most unhealthy way ever, which is genocide.
Yes, and I guess so. If you watch up until this point, then you've seen the first Guardians of the Galaxy. If you're watching this video at all, we're assuming that you've seen both of the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. But if you haven't, Ego is Peter's biological father.
He's a celestial, which means he's pretty much a god.
Yes.
Which he says, God with a small G. So,
yeah.
But when Ego Ego picks them up and starts to explain everything, he kind of gaslights Star-Lord, and he literally tells him oh, who hasn't heard of the mighty Star-Lord, who is able to wield an Infinity Stone in his hand? So he's telling Peter that oh, you're a big deal. When Peter knows, listen, dude, I know I just had a really good couple days, but there's no way that you just showed up because you heard a Star-Lord. There's
right?
no fucking
way. No way. Especially because you're even out past beyond where things are known. And it's oh, so you're from way far away and you're trying to tell me that you've heard of me already? Nah.
Yeah, so everyone's suspicious, obviously, because Peter's never known his father. But Gamora is very supportive. The whole time Peter's I don't know. I know I have hang-ups about who my dad is, but I don't know if he's telling the truth or the whole truth. And she simply says, I have your back no matter what. If he's evil, we'll just kill him. Right. Those are her literal words. So that's very supportive of her to be no matter what we decide to do, I'm here for you. If he ends up being great, awesome. You have your father. If he ends up being evil, we'll be there for that too, and we'll kill him together. We're there for you, Peter. And again, it's that sense of family, which is weird because he has his new family, but then he also has Ego and Yondu, who are his family, but on the negative side of things right now. But during that, Yondu's confronted about favoring Peter. His crew is starting to be again, we're gonna they actually start a mutiny because of how he keeps favoring Peter. Mm-hmm. But he's unwavering. He actually watches his own crewmates get killed for being on Yondu's side, and he just sits there and watches them get murdered because I can't give up Peter.
Yeah.
So he's still trying to be the best dad that he can, even in the face of his own people dying, which is the sacrifice that, not that he wanted to make, but he had to make some kind of sacrifice to save Peter.
Because, and again, I can't speak on this because I do not have my own kids, but I think parents, maybe not daily, but regularly have to make difficult choices for the benefit of their kids, regardless if it's going to negatively affect the people that they call friends, because this is my kid. This is someone that I've chosen, and in this case, it would be an adopted child, but they have chosen to take on this responsibility of raising this person, teaching them what they know, and developing this person into a decent character. And so,
but up until now, Yondu didn't really care, but now he's starting to show his humanity.
Well, I think Yondu. I think he did care a little bit, but I think he didn't want to show it to his crew members. Yes, you know what I mean? He didn't want to put it out because if they found he was soft, Yondu was growing up as a Ravager, so for him, which is tough and hard, and so
what he said to Rocket, he's you try to be the biggest, baddest dude in the room, when in all actuality you're the most scared.
Yes.
I know who you are, boy, because you're me.
Yes, absolutely.
So he's projecting onto Peter, trying to toughen Peter up because he knows he himself feels the weakness in him, and he had to be tough. So he's afraid for Peter. He's like, it's great to have those feelings and they feel good, but you can't, and you need to be tough. And, you know, and like I said, dude, I had a Yondu-ass dad. My dad was kind of like that. My dad wasn't Yondu. He wasn't like that big of an asshole, but like in the sense of like, you know, you need to be as tough as I was. Like, it's odd. And Peter had to go through that, but he doesn't know that Yondu at this moment is, you know, watching his people die for him.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say I would agree. I would also say that my father wasn't a fully Yondu father, but he was definitely like, you need to be tough, man. It's hard out there. Like, you can't be soft. You know what I mean? And he wasn't fully Yondu, so he said it's okay to be a little soft inside, but when you're out there, you can't show it. You need to be strong. You need to be upright. You know what I mean? And project yourself as a person who can handle themselves. Because it's hard out there.
That's how my dad was. He didn't like put me in tight spaces because I'm small enough for thieving.
Yeah.
But, you know, he definitely was like, listen, I get emotions happen, keep them in check. Like, remember that you need to be, you know. Yeah. That's how he is. And fuck you, dude. It worked for you. But like Yondu, like, all right, Yondu, if that's who you want to be, fine. But like, he also wasn't equipped to be a father or ready to be a father because Peter was dropped in his lap. Because as soon as he abducted Peter, he found out that Peter was going to be used in, like, going to be taken to Ego for pretty much his death. So he decided to keep Peter so that Ego wouldn't kill him. Yeah. So Yondu does care, but at the same time, like, he can't show it to anybody, especially Peter, especially his crew. And that's where it leaves off is the crew, you know, they throw a mutiny because they're like, dude, we know you're soft, so we're just going to take this shit from you. Yeah. You know, and that's where it is. So Ego explains his heritage to Peter and says that he's gaslighting him. He says, your mother was my first love and you came from that love. Just trying to, like, I don't know, as quickly as he can, just like attach himself to Peter. You know, and he says to him, like, if you loved her, why did you leave her? You know, which is a good fucking question because he's still like, you know, yeah, you're my biological father, but I still have questions, dude. Like, you bounced on my mom.
It is. And then, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but like,
you didn't.
Like you said, Ego is trying to get attached to Peter as quickly as he can. But then he says, if you loved my mother, why did you leave? So now Ego has to explain the plan and the reason why he brought Peter there so Peter can sort of sympathize with what Ego wants to do. And so he starts to explain the expanse and, you know what I mean? And then he hits him in the head.
But that's not yet, dude, because Ego, when he's explaining to Peter about his mom, he's like, I couldn't step foot on an earth that she wasn't on. You couldn't understand what that's like. And Peter's like, I know exactly what that's like. Like, weirdly enough, I was taken off of Earth the second she left. But, dude, no, I get not wanting to go back to Earth. But, like, what the fuck? So he's, like, kind of understanding, like, dude, every explanation you're giving to me is bullshit. So before with Yondu, Peter would hear Yondu say some bullshit, and he would look at him like, oh, fuck, and, like, kind of believe him. But he's over that now because Ego's explaining some shit to him. He's like, no, I'm calling you on your bullshit, dude. That is a bullshit reason to leave my mom. I know exactly how you're feeling, but that's not a reason.
No.
It's not
a good reason.
Obviously Ego's not, you know, the greatest father figure ever, but like he's trying to pretend to be. And, you know, it's just not working.
No.
You know?
No, it's... Go ahead.
He keeps gaslighting him. And he's like, please give me when he's explaining the expansion a little bit, he's like, please give me the chance to be the father your mother would want me to be. It's just really like, he's just really trying to like talk him into it and using his mother heavily.
Yes. You know what I mean? He's like, you are a part of what I am, you know? And like you said, he's using the relationship that Peter had with his mother heavily to win Peter over. Like, let me be the father that I know she would want me to be. So that sort of Peter, at that moment, Peter starts to lower his guard. You know what I mean? He was still a little unsure. And then when he says that, he's like, and then he has the catch, which is a very
because that's what he wanted to do. Because he said to Gamora that he just wants to have a catch. He got jealous of the kids he grew up with because they were outside having catch with their dad.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Which is very strong symbolism because, father and son, I think when you think of them hanging out and playing, you think of them having a catch. It's just sort of something. And so that in Peter's mind was like, wow, like, yeah,
I
yeah.
have a dad now. This is
This is
awesome.
more
But
than this is more than what Yondu has ever done.
oh,
So
by far. But Ego continues to tell Peter that the song "Brandy" by the Looking Glass, which is a personal favorite song of mine. But
yeah.
Brandy, you're a fine girl. What a good wife you would be. But my life, my lover, my lady is the sea. So people fall into three categories. They're either the sailor, Brandy, or the sea. And
Mm-hmm.
Ego tells Peter, "We're the sailor." Okay, and he calls Peter's mom Brandy, in that she'd make a good wife and like love is great, but that's not your place. Your real calling is the sea, the expanse. To make the whole universe himself. But
Mm-hmm.
he tells him like it breaks down to Peter is about to say yes to being part of the expanse and being part of his father's grand plan, but then he starts thinking about abandoning his friends. And he's like, I can't do that. And like he even has like the light is in him. Like he's under
Yeah.
Ego's like trance, but he's still like, no. What about my friends? And then after that, he's like, what about my mother? And Ego said he loved her, um, and he regrets having to give her cancer.
And as soon as he says that, Peter comes smack back into that
So
reality of what? You killed my like because ego thinks that he has won Peter over into this immortality thinking. And it's like, no, Peter is still very much a human. He still has attachment. He still has fear of loss and regret. And then next thing you know, you tell him that you killed his mother, which is sort of like the source of the reason for his like the source of the
of his
start
pain,
of this
of
development. Yes.
yeah.
And when he says that, he's just like, because he doesn't forget, you know what I mean? And he's
Oh,
just
dude, he
like pop,
snaps right
pop,
out.
pop, pop.
So he attacks Ego, but Ego eventually gets the best of him, and he gets used as a battery. And then Ego breaks Ego breaks the Walkman. And then
Yeah,
right as he's about to, kill Peter, Yondu comes in with Rocket and fucking crashes into Ego and stops everything for a moment. You
yes,
know, which is great, but like they only buy him time. So it's ironic though because so Ego comes back, he attacks everyone, he has everyone pinned to the ground, and Peter's a fucking battery again.
yeah,
And they're about to kill him again, and Yondu is telling him like, "Yo, I don't guide my arrow with my head. I use my heart." And right at that, that's when Peter, and it's ironic, Yondu teaches Peter how to use Ego's light, and
yeah.
then Peter uses Ego's light to defeat Ego.
And that saying is kind of it is not kind of it is contradictory to what we know that Yondu is trying to teach Peter. He wanted Peter to be as far away from his emotions as possible because Yondu had to be as far away from his emotions as possible, right? And it's not you can't use your head. Don't use your heart. You need to be smart, tactical, and intelligent about the situation. And as
Yeah,
Yondu says that the secret to his main ability is his heart, his emotions, and how he feels. And he's like, listen, I know I told you to use your head, but for everything, you need to feel it. You need to
which
feel it
is
right
just
here.
like so that proves that with Yondu, the feeling that he had about Gamora and the rest of the Guardians, and that there's that light inside of them that's like I have these good wants, and I just can't show them. He's seeing that Yondu is now expressing himself in that way, and it's
Yes.
like it really wakes him up. But
Yes.
overall, he helps Peter defeat Ego.
He does. You
Yeah, and
know.
it's a huge part of everything. So Ego's last words before he dies is, "If you kill me, you'll be just like everyone else." And Peter says, "What's so wrong with that?"
Right? He's accepting that everybody has things that they deal with, but he's not alone, so he's not afraid.
Right, and he knows that he no longer needs his father's approval, whether it be Yondu or Ego, and they explode. He's no longer a god because there is no Ego anymore, so he's
Mm-hmm.
immortal again. and he's dying in space, and who comes to save him? Fucking Yondu. Yondu sacrifices himself to save Peter, and here's Yondu's last words. He may have been your father, boy, but he wasn't your daddy. I'm sorry I didn't do any of it right. I'm damn lucky you're my boy.
Right? And then we're leading up into what happened in Infinity War. And so basically this whole thing right here really makes him become more connected with the other members of the Guardians of the Galaxy, because not only was his biological father turns out to be a liar, but he's also a psychopath who just wants to use him for this egotistical expansion. But like when he literally, as he connects on an intimate level with his father, as you know, is kind of the key to developing a son into a great man, is connecting with your, again, I don't have kids, so I can't speak. I'm speaking about my relationship with my father. So connecting with your kids on that emotional level is key in the development of who they are. And just as Peter is having that moment and that experience with his father, he sacrifices himself, and Yondu is dead. Yondu dies. You know what I mean? And so Peter is all torn up, right? And so now the only family that he has, is the family that he had at the beginning of the beginning of the first Guardians of the Galaxy. But not only that, but he's finding a more intimate relationship with Gamora. So before
we get into Infinity War, I just want to say that when Yondu saved him, remember when Peter said that I felt something inside of me? Like I couldn't stand to see you out there dying.
Yes.
He realizes that Yondu had that same feeling about him. Yes. And that Yondu did the best he could as a fucking father. And he wasn't a piece of shit, but with what he had, he did his best for Peter. But go ahead.
But so when that happens, and so Peter is now even more attached to this adopted family that he's a part of. And then, you know, those feelings develop with Gamora. So when we pick up with the Guardians of the Galaxy, they're all together now. They're feeling good. They get a distress beacon from the downed ship that was housing all of the Asgardians. They pick up Thor, and Thor tells them about all this. So then they're like, we got to go back to nowhere to see the Collector who has the stone. Well, what happens is there's a conflict, right? They come in, they try and go separate. Thanos makes quick work. He gets Gamora. He makes quick work of Drax and Mantis. And here comes Peter. Peter, who has both defeated Ronan, held an Infinity Stone, and defeat a Celestial, comes across Thanos, a Titan, and he's like, whatever, dude. Like, I'm not worried about you. Goes, and then, like...
He promised Gamora that if that were to happen, that he would kill her because that's better than Thanos taking him. And now, again, he is confronted with the decision of sacrificing someone he loves.
Yes. And he does that motion, right? But we know that Thanos has a hold of the Reality Stone, so he is able to turn laser beams into bubbles. So nothing happens. And then Thanos... So it gets the best of Peter. And I feel like Peter is so, like, beside himself because he's got no idea. And I'm not sure what the exact timeline is, but I feel like all this for Peter is happening relatively back to back. Like, there's not much time in between all this development.
The movies are back to back. There might be a little bit of time between 1 and 2, but not much to where it's not like, wow, it's been a weird couple months.
Yeah. So when we meet up with, like, when we finally, you know, they're all coming together, the Guardians bust into the ship that Iron Man and Doctor Strange are on, and they come up with a plan. They're on Titan. Here comes Thanos. And
the plan to defeat Thanos. The 1 in 7 billion chance at beating Thanos.
Yes. The first plan that they have to defeat this guy. And it's a great plan. You know, they get him subdued. Mantis is on his head, putting him to sleep. You got Spidey and Iron Man trying to take the gauntlet off, and Peter's just like, this is my plan, and this worked because I've done this before.
It's working. The gauntlet's off. You see his thumb almost come out.
You do. And so his thumb does come out because he's got to grab it with his hand. Yep. And so Mantis then goes on to say that he's mourning. Drax is like, what's he mourning about? And Nebula puts it together. Nebula's like, he left with Gamora and came back with the Soul Stone. And Nebula, who spent so much time with Thanos, knows what he knows the stories of the Infinity Stones, because this has been Thanos' entire life goal, was to collect these stones.
As long as they know it, yeah.
Exactly. So Gamora, so he finds, you know what I mean? And then Peter puts it together, and he's like, tell me you didn't do it. And in this instant, Peter
said, I had to.
Yes. And he said, no, you did it. And like this right here is sort of, it's such a devastating moment for Peter, because like I said, all these series of events have happened relatively one after another. He, gets a family, father dies, biological father dies. You know what I mean? Now he's really entrenched with this, and now he finally has like this intimate relationship, which again is a new development.
Oh, absolutely, because for him, it's not only a new family member; it's his most loved new family member, and It just so happens to be someone that like he wants to spend his life with outside of just being, good people and friends.
Yes, and so when this happens, when Peter puts it all together, Peter is overwhelmed with emotion, and I know a lot of people were mad at him, but if you've ever been in a fight, or if you've ever had overwhelming hatred towards somebody, you know this feeling. In your head, you're thinking of all these, like before you meet this person for this confrontation, you're in your head, you're like, I'm going to do this, or I'm going to hit him like this, or I'm going to do this. But when you see that person in front of you, all that goes out the window.
Unless you're a trained fighter, sure, yeah.
Right? But even if you are a trained fighter, sometimes that hatred just gets the best of you, and you are just overcome with this emotion of hatred and anger and jealousy. And so all of your logical thinking goes right out the window. And that's what happened to Peter. Peter knows that this is an imminent threat, and if they need to get these stones, he knows the story of the stones, he knows who Thanos is, and he knows what the plan is.
He knows the importance, yeah.
Yes, but he's not thinking about that. He's only thinking about his emotions towards his family and towards Gamora, and then that's when he's just like bang and hits him right.
Pistol whips him. He fucking pistol whips him.
And just keeps hitting him.
Moral of all of this to say, we've gone through Guardians 1, Guardians 2, Infinity War. There's going to be more on Peter Quill in Thor: Love and Thunder, but the moral of all of this, what we got together for, was, do we really blame Peter for the plan not working? We know in retrospect that the overall plan did involve Peter doing this. Doctor Strange saw it happen. Mm-hmm. But just in terms of where we now know Peter was mentally in the events that have unfolded between Guardians 1 and Infinity War, do you really blame Peter for being so upset with the loss of his new family after everything he's been through? Do you blame him for getting a few shots in on Thanos? He didn't know it would wake him up, but jeopardizing the plan for his own anger. Do you blame him?
No, I do not. I did in the moment because the stakes are really high, and at this point you're you're engrossed in the overall story, But when you break it down and you look at specifically where Peter Quill was at up until this point, remembering who we are as a person and how he reacted, no, I do not blame him, because emotions are a very strong driver. He was overwhelmed with anger and just so mad because he finally gotten what he had craved for so long. You know what I mean? And it was taken away from him. Not only did he lose a family member, but he lost a love. Like, he lost somebody that he was very close with intimately, which is not many, you know what I mean? Like, and he never had a relationship like that before, because at the beginning of Guardians of the Galaxy 1, he's very cavalier.
He was a loner,
He was. He didn't even remember the girl's name, or that she was even in the lower area of the ship.
Her name was Barit.
It was Barit. And so, no, I do not blame Peter, because I understand that overwhelming feeling of emotion when that is placed in front of you.
Dude, I wanted to get your take on that because I know me, my emotions are so unstable. I don't trust myself to not do what Peter did. So if I was in Peter's shoes, I'd probably do the same thing. But I also am cocky enough to think maybe I'd hold off. But dude, I don't blame Peter. I don't blame Peter for doing it. In knowing what I know now, what Peter's been through in these 3 movies, what leads up to it.
Mm-hmm.
I think what he did was understandable.
Yes.
Was completely understandable, and therefore I don't think he's wrong, especially because him breaking down and making that mistake was an integral part of them actually defeating Thanos in the long run. If they didn't lose that day, they didn't have the chance to win 5 years later.
Yeah, and he might have never seen Gamora again because he sees Gamora again in Endgame during the time travel. But like,
and that's where we'll leave it off, Matt, because Gamora does come back. She's from a different timeline. She doesn't know Peter, but all she knows is that Nebula told her that Peter is a really good person, and the other me fell for him. So she knows in her head that even though she's not comfortable yet or really know him, that he's a good dude, and he's definitely worth leading, like being the leader. So, dude, Matt. Thank you so much for getting on here with me and doing all this. We have to do something like this again soon. I'm so glad that you're a Peter Quill fan. I'm a Peter Quill fan. Oh, yeah. And now, straight from the horse's mouth, dude, it's not his fault. Okay, he was raised by subpar parenting, and even though he was on the up and up, he's climbing the same hill that Matt's climbing, that I'm climbing, that you're climbing, and he made a mistake. It was a huge fucking mistake, and he had to own up to it eventually. But yeah. That's where it's at. So now you are aware of the overall mental state and mental health awareness of where Peter Quill is at throughout.
Yes, and you shouldn't blame him. You shouldn't pass such harsh judgment because you're a human too.
Alone, leave him be. We're all healing, dude. But that was the point of all this. Is that he's a fucking superhero like on fucking movies and shit. But at the same time, like he goes through stuff that we can relate to, and I can relate to trying to be better than where I came from while still respecting the positive aspects that I take with me day to day. Yeah. But dude, Matt, thanks again for being on the Super Show.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, dude, I'll have you anytime. I can't wait for your live workout again. I might want to join you. But dude,
nice.
You're gonna be on the GODcast again. I can't wait for us to do another Super Show. But ladies and gentlemen, that's all the time we have. Matt, say goodbye to the people.
Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening to what we had to say. I hope you understand Peter a little bit more. I hope you understand yourself a little bit more. We're not here for that, but sometimes these stories help us reveal who we can be or who we are. So thank you for joining us. We appreciate all the love.
No one ever grew from not having a conversation about how they felt. So thanks, guys.
Yes.